speaker is ready. The audience is poised. How about a big round of applause for Joshua Plank, all right?
How many of you noticed the shoes? Show of hands. Well, here's the thing. They may not go with the rest of the suit, but they have an interesting significance to my presentation today. Tell me, what's the connection between these shoes and the Last Supper? Believe it or not, it's actually the waffle. You know, the first Nike running shoes were actually made by just pouring polyurethane rubber right onto a waffle iron. And while these shoes may represent an endpoint for the waffle, this represents a point of origin. Hi, I'm Joshua Plank, and ever since I saw the Waffles episode of Good Eats when I was a kid, I have been absolutely engaged by the story of the waffle. I've been researching it, and today I want to share a bit of that magic with you. I'm going to take you from the origins of the waffle, through its expansion throughout the European continent until it finally was realized as a modern commercial product, potentially on your plate for breakfast this morning. So, taking a step back in time to my first point, Kat Eschner of the Smithsonian reports that the first people to invent the whole idea of cooking pastry between two metal plates were the Greeks. They had these wafers called oblios that were just a simple flour water paste. Like most good ideas in the wake of the Roman Empire, however, this got spread all around Europe and eventually made its way to France, which is the main place I want to stop off for this point. They invented the oubliette. That's a loan word that does not mean to forget for all you French nerds out there. Now, if we split this iron in half, we see the key innovation of the French, namely patterns. On the left here, we have Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and on the right here, we have Samson ripping apart a lion with his bare hands. If a metal band hasn't used that for an album cover yet, I'm going to be highly disappointed. But these are both scenes from the Christian Bible, and since these wafers were going to be flat and unleavened, they were seen as an analog for the communion wafer. Now, what's communion, in case you don't know? It's a Christian sacrament in which adherents consume bread and wine in representation of Jesus' body and blood broken on a cross for the sins of humankind. Now, since these communion wafers are typically unleavened due to the crucifixion happening during Passover, and these wafers were unleavened, they were seen as a way of blessing the ends of meals throughout the rest of the week. You know, you don't have a priest there to bless it, but they're still religious, right? But a wafer does not a waffle make, right? So how did we get from this to the modern waffle? Well, I said 13th century, right? What was wrapping up in the 13th century? That's right, the Crusades. And as detestable as they are to all of us here in this audience, the fact of the matter is they triggered a massive socioeconomic shift in Europe. People wanted to taste a little bit of all those lands to the east that Marcus was talking about earlier. And so they took spices from those regions eastward and put them into the oubliettes. By the 14th century, we got the next logical extension of this concept. From Karl Tiefenbacher in 2017, he is a waffle food scientist by trade. The first published waffle recipe was published in this book, Le Ménagier de Paris. Forgive my French. That recipe included egg, wine, and cheese in order to flavor the waffle. And I can hear some laughs about why not sugar. Well, that's because it was prohibitively expensive until we hit about the 17th or 18th centuries. By the 16th century, we finally cut off that last religious tie by adding leaven to the waffle. Our main source for this is actually not any printed materials, believe it or not, but paintings. If we look at this painting, the fight between Carnival and Lent by Peter Bruegel the Elder, if we blow it up, you can see up here, there's a woman making waffles here, and down here, there's a man with waffles in his hat selling waffles. And these are very clearly the puffy modern grid designs. So we finally cut off that last religious tie. It was now leavened, unlike communion wafers. Its full commercialization of the waffle led to such events in the 17th and 18th centuries as waffle price wars and waffle zoning laws that would have never happened if it wasn't a commercial product. But how did they get to your plate? Well, let's take a hop across the Atlantic Ocean, shall we? From Yves Colby in 2017, on August 24th, or that year, August 24th, 1869, Cornelius Swartwood patented this. This is the stovetop waffle maker, the original patent. And this product, along with the further innovations of the electric waffle iron and pre-made waffle mixes, helped popularize the waffle with the American public. I should probably note, by the way, that Cornelius Swartwood was a descendant of Dutch immigrants to the U.S., and Dutch immigrants originally brought waffles to the brought waffles over in the 16th century, back when the U.S. was still in its colonial period. So, all these these innovations, along with the further innovation of the Froffle, which is, in case you don't know, the frozen Eggo waffle that you can buy in the freezer aisle at your... Yes, this is the real name, believe it or not. The Froffle. That's what the people in industry call it. And these innovations cemented it as a product of convenience in the American populace's mind. So let's just take a look back at this journey we've taken. We started with these humble, religiously charged communion wafer analogs, but the forces of capitalism throughout Europe expanded them into the big fluffy waffles we see today. And finally, the innovation of European immigrants in America cemented them as our modern commercial product. Ultimately, as I stated at the top of my presentation, the transformation of waffle mirrored that of Europe as a whole as the forces of history were moving it away from the Catholic Church as the center of power to more capitalistic endeavors. I hope you all enjoyed this presentation, learned a little something, or at least I made your next waffle a little more delicious. And one more note, real grade B maple syrup next time you head over to Dining Hall West. It really does make a difference. Thank you all for listening.